Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the massive viewport. After 18 months in deep space, the colony ship was finally approaching what the scientists back on Earth hoped would be humanity's first home beyond the solar system. 3,000 colonists slept in cryopods below, dreaming of new beginnings on Kepler 442b. "Captain, we're detecting some unusual energy readings ahead," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the sensor station. His voice carried a note of concern that made Sarah's stomach tighten. "What kind of readings?" Sarah moved to stand behind him, studying the display screen filled with scrolling data. "I'm not sure. The computer doesn't recognize the patterns. It's definitely artificial, though, maybe some kind of deep space beacon or navigation marker." Sarah frowned. Earth's telescopes had found no signs of intelligent life in this system. That was one of the reasons they had chosen Kepler 442b as their destination. "Distance? About 2 light hours ahead. We should reach the source in approximately 6 hours at current speed. Reduce speed to half. I want a full sensor sweep of everything in our path. If there's technology out here, we need to know what we're dealing with." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as the New Horizon slowed its approach. Sarah felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Every decision she made affected 3,000 sleeping souls who had trusted her to guide them safely to their new home. 4 hours later, the truth became clear. "Captain," Torres called out, his voice tight with amazement, "you need to see this." Sarah hurried back to the sensor station. The main screen now showed a 3-dimensional map of the space ahead. Scattered throughout the system were dozens of structures, space stations, orbital platforms, and what looked like massive ships moving between the planets. "My God," whispered Dr. Elizabeth Park, the mission's chief scientist who had been called to the bridge. "It's a civilization, an entire star system populated by aliens." Sarah's mouth went dry. This changed everything. The colonists had signed up to build humanity's first settlement on an empty world, not to make first contact with an alien species. "Are they trying to communicate with us?" Sarah asked. "Negative, Captain. We're receiving no transmissions directed at us. In fact, I don't think they've noticed us yet." "Good. Let's keep it that way for now. Change course. Take us around the outer edge of the system. We need to get back to Earth and report this." But as the New Horizon began its course correction, something went wrong. The alien detection systems were far more advanced than humanity could have imagined. The moment the colony ship entered what the Zaphirian Empire considered their sacred space, alarms began ringing on their monitoring stations. Admiral Vexhai of the Imperial Fleet studied the readings with cold, calculating eyes. The Zaphirians had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They had encountered dozens of younger species attempting to spread beyond their home systems, and the response was always the same. "A primitive vessel has violated the sacred boundary," reported his aide. "Species unknown. Technology level appears to be early spaceflight, chemical rockets and basic fusion drives." Admiral Vexahai's 4 arms moved in a gesture of dismissal. "Another upstart species that thinks they can travel wherever they please. Where did they come from?" Analysis suggests their origin point is approximately 47 light-years away, in system designated as Sol 3 in our databases. "Sol 3? The Admiral accessed his memory banks. "Ah yes, the 3rd planet orbits a yellow star, population of several billion. They have achieved basic spaceflight within their own system, but this appears to be their first attempt at interstellar travel." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Vexhai considered the options. The Zaphirian Empire had maintained its dominance through a simple policy. Any species that dared to enter sacred space without permission received an immediate and proportional response. It was not about cruelty. It was about maintaining order in the galaxy. Prepare 10 antimatter missiles. Target their homeworld. We will teach them the consequences of disrespecting the Empire. "Sir, 10 missiles could kill millions of their population." "Exactly. A lesson that will ensure they never make this mistake again. Launch when ready." The aide hesitated. "Admiral, should we not attempt communication first? Perhaps a warning?" Vexhai's expression hardened. Communication implies they are equals deserving of negotiation. They are not. They are children who have wandered into traffic. Sometimes children must be hurt to learn important lessons. 20 minutes later, 10 sleek missiles launched from the Zaphirian fleet. Each one carried enough antimatter to level a major city. They would take months to reach Earth, traveling at a significant percentage of light speed. The Zaphirians considered the matter closed. Meanwhile, aboard the New Horizon, Captain Chen was making preparations to leave the system when her communications officer detected something that made her blood run cold. "Captain, I'm picking up 10 objects that just launched from the alien fleet. They're on a direct course for Earth." Sarah rushed to the communication station. "Are you certain?" "Yes, ma'am. Based on their trajectory and speed, they'll reach Earth in approximately 7 months. Dr. Park's face went pale. Those could be weapons. Or they could be communication probes, Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Send an immediate message to Earth. Full encryption. Tell them what we've found and warn them about the incoming objects." The message would take 47 years to reach Earth traveling at light speed. The mysterious objects would arrive in 7 months. "There has to be another way," Sarah muttered, staring at the star map. Then something occurred to her. "Torres, what if we went back? What if we tried to catch those objects before they reach Earth? Captain, even at maximum speed, we couldn't intercept them. They're traveling too fast and we don't have enough fuel for the return journey anyway." Sarah felt the weight of helplessness crushing down on her. Somewhere behind them, 10 unknown objects were racing toward Earth, and there was nothing she could do to stop them. 7 months later, the first object appeared on Earth's deep space monitoring stations. Dr. James Wright was finishing his night shift at the Arecibo 2 facility when the computer flagged an anomaly. At first, he thought it was a glitch in the system. The object was moving far too fast to be natural, nearly 15% of light speed. "Maria, come look at this," he called to his colleague. Dr. Maria Santos joined him at the monitor. "What am I looking at?" "Something big heading straight for Earth, and it's not alone. The computer is tracking 9 more objects behind it." Santos felt her heart skip a beat. "How long until impact?" 72 hours for the first one. The others will arrive over the next 6 hours after that." Within an hour, every space agency on Earth was tracking the objects. Within 6 hours, the United Nations had convened an emergency session. Within 12 hours, the world's leaders were debating humanity's response to what could only be an alien attack. But debate was all they could do. Earth's technology was not advanced enough to intercept objects moving at such incredible speed. The world watched in helpless terror as the objects approached. The first missile struck Shanghai at 14:37 GMT on a Tuesday afternoon. The antimatter warhead vaporized the city center instantly, creating a fireball visible from orbit. 8 million people died in the first second. The second missile hit New York 4 hours later. The third struck London, Moscow, Tokyo, Mumbai, Lagos, São Paulo, Sydney. Each impact was broadcast live around the world as humanity watched its greatest cities burn. The death toll climbed past 50 million in a single day. The 10th and final missile was different. Something went wrong with its guidance system as it approached Earth. Instead of targeting Los Angeles as planned, it crashed into the Pacific Ocean 200 miles off the coast of California. The impact created a tsunami that devastated coastal areas, but the warhead did not detonate. As rescue efforts began and the world struggled to comprehend what had happened, marine salvage teams worked frantically to locate the intact missile. If they could recover it, perhaps they could understand who had attacked them and why. 3 weeks later, the New Horizon received Earth's response to their warning message. The transmission was brief and filled with static, but the message was clear. Earth had been attacked. Billions were dead or displaced. The planet was in chaos. Captain Chen sat in her quarters staring at the message display. She thought about the 3,000 colonists sleeping peacefully below, unaware that their home world had been devastated. Should she wake them? Should she tell them their families might be dead? Outside her viewport, alien ships moved through. space with casual indifference. They had destroyed human civilization as easily as swatting a fly, and they had already forgotten about it. But Chen made a decision that would echo through history. Instead of continuing to their original destination, she ordered the New Horizon to remain in alien space. They would watch and learn. They would gather intelligence about these aliens, their technology, their weaknesses, their culture. Because Captain Sarah Chen was certain of one thing: humanity would not forgive this attack. And when Earth was ready, they would want to know everything possible about their enemies. The surviving humans on Earth were thinking the same thing. As they pulled bodies from the rubble and counted their dead, a single thought burned in the minds of billions. This would not go unanswered. The aliens had fired 10 missiles at Earth, believing it would teach humanity a lesson about knowing their place in the galaxy. They were right about one thing: humanity was about to learn exactly where they belonged. But the lesson would be very different from what the Zaphirians expected. The recovered missile sat in a special facility beneath the Nevada desert, surrounded by the brightest minds humanity could gather. Dr. Elena Vasquez ran her hands along its smooth, alien surface, marveling at materials that seemed to bend light around them. "The metallurgy alone is centuries ahead of us," she reported to the assembled team of scientists. "The hull is composed of elements we don't even have names for. But more importantly, the guidance system survived the ocean impact almost perfectly." General Marcus Thompson, newly appointed head of the Global Defense Initiative, studied the reports with grim determination. The world had changed completely in the 6 months since the attacks. National borders meant nothing now. Humanity had only one priority: survival and eventual retribution. "What can we learn from it?" Thompson asked. "Everything," Dr. Vasquez replied. "Their computer systems, their power sources, their weapons technology. It's like finding an intact spaceship from 500 years in the future." Around the table sat representatives from every major nation on Earth. The old rivalries and conflicts had ended the moment alien fire fell from the sky. China shared its manufacturing expertise freely with the United States. Russia opened its raw materials to Europe. India and Pakistan worked side by side on theoretical physics. The Middle East had declared peace to focus on the greater threat. "How long will it take?" asked Dr. Liu Wei, speaking for the Chinese delegation. "To understand their basic technology? Maybe 2 years with our current resources. To actually build something useful? 5 to 10 years. Too long," Thompson said flatly. "Our intelligence suggests these aliens have a vast empire. They could decide to finish the job at any time." Dr. Vasquez nodded. "That's why we need to change our approach entirely. We can't just study this missile in a laboratory. We need to integrate alien technology into human engineering from the ground up." Over the following months, humanity underwent the most dramatic transformation in its history. Every major corporation redirected its resources toward the single goal of advancing human space technology. Universities restructured their entire curricula around physics and engineering. Military budgets worldwide were pooled into a single fund managed by the Global Defense Initiative. The changes went deeper than technology. The attack had awakened something primal in human nature: the absolute refusal to be wiped out quietly. Memorials to the dead were built in every city, but they weren't places of mourning. They were reminders of why humanity had to become stronger. "We will not forget Shanghai," became the rallying cry that echoed across the planet. Children learned it in school. Workers chanted it in factories building new spacecraft. Scientists whispered it during long nights in research laboratories. Meanwhile, 47 light-years away, Captain Chen and her crew aboard the New Horizon were conducting the most dangerous intelligence mission in human history. Using the ship's long-range sensors, they monitored alien communications and ship movements from the edge of the system. "Their language is mathematical in structure," reported Dr. Park, who had been analyzing intercepted transmissions for months. "Each concept is expressed as a series of numerical relationships. I think I'm beginning to understand the basic patterns." Chen studied the translation attempts scattered across Park's workstation. "What have you learned about them?" They call themselves the Zaphirian Empire. They've controlled this region of space for over 2,000 years. And Captain Park's voice grew troubled. I don't think they see us as people. What do you mean? Their communications about the attack refer to humans as primitives and children. They didn't attack Earth because they hate us. They attacked because they see us as dangerous animals that wandered into their territory. Chen felt anger burning in her chest. Dangerous animals? It gets worse. From what I can determine, this isn't the first time they've done this. They've attacked dozens of species over the centuries. It's their standard policy for maintaining control. Chen walked to the viewport and stared out at the alien ships moving through space with casual arrogance. Then we need to show them that humans are more dangerous than they realize. Back on Earth, humanity was learning that lesson themselves. The integration of alien technology was producing breakthroughs that shocked even the scientists involved. Dr. Vasquez had been right. Understanding the missile was like finding a roadmap to the future. The power source is incredible, Dr. Raj Patel explained to a gathering of world leaders. They've found a way to extract energy directly from space-time itself. No fuel required, no waste products. A single unit the size of a basketball could power New York City for a year. And the weapons? General Thompson asked. Antimatter confinement technology that's practically perfect. But more interesting is their propulsion system. They're not using rockets at all. They're manipulating gravity itself. President Chen of the Reformed United Nations leaned forward. How long before we can build ships using this technology? The first prototypes are already under construction, Dr. Patel replied. But we're not just copying their designs. We're improving them. That statement would have seemed impossible a year earlier, but humanity had discovered something the aliens apparently lacked. Desperation-driven innovation. While Zaphirian technology was advanced, it was also conservative. They had perfected their designs over centuries and saw no reason to change them. Humans, facing extinction, were willing to try combinations and modifications that alien engineers would consider reckless. Some experiments failed catastrophically. Others produced unexpected breakthroughs. We've created a hybrid navigation system, reported Dr. Sarah Kim from the Geneva facility. Zaphirian gravity manipulation combined with human quantum computing. Our ships should be able to travel 3 times faster than theirs. The weapons integration is showing similar results, added Colonel Rodriguez from the weapons development team. Their antimatter technology combined with our miniaturization techniques. We can build warheads 1/10 the size with twice the destructive power. But the most important breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Mitchell, a theoretical physicist who had lost his entire family in the London attack, was working alone in his laboratory when he discovered something the aliens had missed. The space-time manipulation they use for faster-than-light travel, he explained excitedly to his colleagues. It doesn't just affect propulsion, it can be weaponized. What do you mean? Dr. Vasquez asked. I mean, we can make their own ships disappear, not destroy them, make them cease to exist. Remove them from reality itself. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Mitchell's discovery would later be classified beyond top secret, but its potential was immediately clear to everyone present. As Earth's technology advanced, so did its industrial capacity. Asteroid mining operations launched weekly, stripping rare metals from space rocks to fuel the construction effort. Orbital shipyards grew like metal flowers around Earth's moon, building vessels that combined human determination with alien science. The first test flight of humanity's new spacecraft took place 18 months after the attacks. The prototype ship, designated Retribution 1, successfully traveled to Proxima Centauri and back in just 3 weeks, a journey that should have taken decades with conventional technology. But humanity wasn't content with matching alien capabilities. They were already working on the next generation of improvements. We've solved the communication problem, Dr. Park reported during one of her regular transmissions from the New Horizon. I can now translate Zaphirian communications in real time. And Captain, I've discovered something important about their military structure. Chen gathered around the communications station with her senior officers. What have you found? They're not expecting any retaliation from Earth. Their intelligence reports classify humans as contained threat eliminated. They think we're extinct. Good, Chen replied. Let them keep thinking that. What else have you learned? Their empire is vast but spread thin. They control hundreds of star systems, but their actual military presence is concentrated in about 20 key locations. Most of their territory is governed by automated systems and local puppet governments. Chen smiled for the first time in months. Weaknesses? Several. Their communication system relies on quantum entanglement transmitters located in specific facilities. If those were destroyed, entire sectors would be cut off from Central Command. Their supply lines are predictable. They use the same shipping routes they established centuries ago. And Captain? Yes? They've made enemies. I've intercepted communications from dozens of species under Zaphirian control. They're all afraid, but I think some of them might welcome liberators. Chen turned to her tactical officer. Start compiling detailed intelligence reports on everything Dr. Park has discovered. When we finally return to Earth, we want to give our people every advantage possible. Captain, asked her first officer, when do you think we'll go home? Chen looked out at the alien ships moving through space, still unaware that humans were watching their every move. When Earth is ready to take this fight to them, when we can guarantee that no alien will ever again think of humanity as primitives to be casually exterminated. She paused, thinking of the billions who had died in the attacks. When we can make them understand that they started a war they cannot win. On Earth, that preparation was accelerating beyond all expectations. Humanity had awakened to find itself in a universe full of hostile aliens. But instead of cowering in fear, they had chosen to become something the galaxy had never seen before. A species unified by the absolute determination to ensure their survival. The Zaphirians had fired 10 missiles at Earth to teach humanity their place in the galactic order. They had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. Humanity now knew exactly where they belonged at the top of the food chain, and they were building the tools to claim that position. 5 years after the attacks, Admiral Rebecca Cross stood on the bridge of the Earth's Vengeance, humanity's first true warship. The vessel was a perfect fusion of human engineering and alien technology, capable of speeds that would have been impossible before the recovery of the Zaphirian missile. All ships report ready, Admiral, announced her tactical officer. Around them, a fleet of 30 ships hung in space like silent predators. Each one carried weapons that could level cities and defensive systems that bent reality itself. Target. Confirmed? Cross asked. Yes, ma'am. Zaphirian outpost Keth 7, approximately 12 light-years from their nearest major base. Population of roughly 50,000 aliens, plus an unknown number of enslaved species. Cross nodded. The target had been chosen carefully. It was important enough to send a message, but isolated enough that reinforcements would take days to arrive. More importantly, intelligence from the New Horizon suggested that Keth 7 housed one of the quantum communication arrays that linked the outer territories to the Zaphirian Central Command. Dr. Mitchell, are the new weapons ready for field testing? Dr. James Mitchell, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, checked his readings. The reality displacement warheads are armed and ready. Fair warning, Admiral. We're not entirely sure what will happen when we use them in combat. Will they work? Oh, they'll work. The question is whether they'll work too well. Cross understood the concern. Mitchell's breakthrough in weaponizing space-time manipulation had led to weapons that didn't just destroy targets. They removed them from existence entirely. Early tests had been both spectacular and terrifying. Signal to all ships, Cross commanded. Today we begin humanity's response to the attack on Earth. We are not conquerors. We are not invaders. We are the consequences of their actions. The fleet moved into formation and jumped to faster than light speed. The journey to Keth 7 took 6 hours, a trip that would have required months using pre-war human technology. When they emerged from hyperspace, the Zaphirian outpost was completely unprepared. Admiral, the enemy station is hailing us, reported the communications officer. Put them through. The main screen showed a Zaphirian commander, his forearms moving in what Dr. Park's research had identified as a gesture of confused authority. When he spoke, the ship's computer provided real-time translation. Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourselves immediately or face the consequences. Cross stepped forward. I am Admiral Rebecca Cross of the Human Defense Fleet. We are here to deliver a message. The alien commander's expression shifted to what might have been amusement. Humans? Impossible. That species was eliminated 5 cycles ago for violating sacred boundaries. Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated, Cross replied. You fired 10 missiles at our world. Today we begin our response. Before the alien could reply, Cross gave the order. All ships, open fire. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons striking with devastating accuracy. But it wasn't the destruction that shocked the Zaphirians. It was the nature of the weapons themselves. When the reality displacement warheads struck Zaphirian ships, the vessels simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field, no radiation. Signature. One moment a ship was there, the next moment it had never existed at all. What are these weapons? The Zaphirian commander demanded, his calm composure cracking. The consequences of underestimating human ingenuity, Cross replied. You taught us that might makes right in this galaxy. We're fast learners. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zaphirian fleet was gone and their outpost was defenseless. But Cross wasn't finished. Attention all beings on Keth 7, she broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Cross of the Human Defense Fleet. We know this facility houses enslaved populations of multiple species. You have 1 hour to evacuate all non-Zaphirian personnel to designated safe zones. Dr. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. We're evacuating their slaves? We're liberating them, Cross corrected. There's a difference. The operation that followed set the pattern for every human military action in the war. Human forces didn't just attack Zaphirian installations, they systematically freed every enslaved species they encountered. Refugee ships, provided by Earth's rapidly expanding industrial base, carried liberated populations to safe systems where they could rebuild their societies. But the most important part of the Keth 7 operation came after the battle. Human engineers, working with freed alien technicians who understood Zaphirian systems, seized control of the quantum communication array. We're in, reported Chief Engineer Watson. The entire communication network for this sector is now under our control. Cross smiled. Time to introduce ourselves to the neighborhood. The message that went out across 17 star systems was simple and direct. The Zaphirian Empire told you that humans were extinct. As you can see, they lied. We are coming to liberate this sector. Resist the Zaphirians now and we will remember your courage. Continue to serve them and face the consequences. The response was immediate and dramatic. On 6 different worlds, enslaved populations rose up against their Zaphirian overseers. Local defense forces, consisting mainly of alien species pressed into Imperial service, began defecting wholesale. The sector that had been stable for centuries suddenly erupted into chaos. Admiral, reported the tactical officer, we're receiving communication requests from 14 different species. They're all asking the same question. Are we really here to liberate them? Tell them yes, Cross replied, and tell them we're just getting started. The success at Keth 7 was transmitted back to Earth, where it triggered the largest military mobilization in human history. Shipyards that had been building 1 vessel per month suddenly began launching 1 per week. The asteroid belt was being strip-mined to provide materials for the war effort, but humanity's strategy went far beyond simple military conquest. Dr. Park, now head of alien relations, had spent 5 years studying not just Zaphirian technology, but their entire social structure. The Empire's greatest weakness isn't military, she explained to the Global Defense Council. It's political. They've spent 2,000 years making enemies. Every species they've conquered, every world they've enslaved, every culture they've suppressed, all of it represents potential allies for us. General Thompson, now promoted to Supreme Military Commander, studied the intelligence reports from the outer territories. You're suggesting we turn this into a liberation war rather than a conquest? I'm suggesting we turn it into a revolution, Park replied. The Zaphirians rule through fear and superior technology. We can match their technology now, and we can offer something they never could: freedom. The strategy proved devastatingly effective. As human fleets moved through Zaphirian space, they weren't just conquering territory. They were sparking uprising after uprising. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found themselves with powerful allies and advanced weapons. The Karathi, aquatic beings whose ocean worlds had been strip-mined for rare minerals, provided detailed intelligence on Zaphirian industrial facilities. The insectoid Vexani, bred as living computers by their conquerors, began sabotaging Imperial data networks. The crystalline Geltar, forced to serve as living communication arrays, started feeding false information to Zaphirian commanders. Each liberated world became a staging ground for the next operation. Human industrial capacity, already impressive, was multiplied by the resources and knowledge of dozens of alien civilizations. Ships began rolling off production lines that combined the best technology from every species in the growing alliance. But the Zaphirians were not passive observers of their empire's collapse. Admiral Vexhai, the same commander who had ordered the attack on Earth, was recalled from retirement to deal with the human threat. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded, studying the tactical displays in the Imperial War Room. "Approximately 400 vessels across 17 sectors," reported his aide. "But Admiral, the ships aren't just destroyed. According to survivor reports, they simply vanish. Our scientists cannot explain the weapon system." Vexhai's expression grew cold. "And the primitive species we eliminated? How many ships do they possess?" "Current estimates suggest between 800 and 1,200 vessels, Admiral. But the number grows daily. They seem to have unlimited industrial capacity." "Impossible. Their homeworld was devastated. How can they field such a fleet?" The aide hesitated. "Admiral, our intelligence suggests they never stopped building. The attack on their world didn't destroy their civilization. It unified it." For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vexhai felt something like concern. The Zaphirian Empire had never faced an enemy like this, a species that grew stronger through adversity and turned their own weapons against them. "What do our allies report?" "That's another problem, Admiral. We don't have any allies left in the affected sectors. Every client species has either joined the humans or declared neutrality. Some are actively sabotaging our operations." Vexhai stared at the strategic map showing human advances across the galaxy. Red markers indicated lost territories, while blue markers showed areas under human influence. The pattern was clear. Humanity wasn't just winning battles. They were winning hearts and minds. "Prepare the Third Fleet for immediate deployment," he ordered. "If these humans want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." But even as he gave the order, Vexhai wondered if it was already too late. The humans had done something the Zaphirian Empire had never encountered in 2,000 years of dominance. They had turned the galaxy against its rulers. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth's Vengeance, Admiral Cross was planning the next phase of operations. The outer territories were falling faster than anyone had expected, but she knew the real test was still ahead. "Intelligence reports suggest the Zaphirians are massing their main fleet," reported her tactical officer. "Admiral Vexhai himself is taking command." Cross nodded. "Good. It's time they learned what Earth's children can do when we're truly angry." She turned to address her bridge crew. "Send a message to all human fleets and our allied forces. Tell them the hunt is no longer just beginning. Tell them it's time to start the real war." The message that went out across liberated space was simple. They fired 10 missiles at Earth. We've fired back 10,000 times that number. But we're just getting started. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's capacity for retribution was matched only by their ability to inspire others to join their cause. The Battle of Xerion Prime would be remembered as the moment the galaxy realized that humanity had not just survived the Zaphirian attack. They had evolved beyond recognition. Admiral Vexhai commanded a fleet of 2,000 ships, the largest military force the Zaphirian Empire had assembled in 5 centuries. Across the vast emptiness of space, Admiral Cross faced him with 800 human vessels and twice that number of ships from liberated species. Their fleet composition is unlike anything we've encountered, reported Vexhai's tactical officer. Human ships appear to phase in and out of normal space at will. Our targeting systems cannot maintain locks. Vexhai studied the enemy formation with growing unease. 5 years of reports had described human capabilities, but seeing them firsthand was different. The human ships moved like living things, flowing through space in patterns that defied conventional tactics. What about their allied vessels? Even more problematic, Admiral. The freed species are using modified versions of our own technology against us. They know our weaknesses because they built our systems under forced labor. On the human flagship, Cross watched as her fleet's AI systems processed millions of tactical calculations per second. The artificial intelligence networks, another breakthrough, born from desperation, allowed human commanders to coordinate complex maneuvers that would have been impossible with traditional command structures. All Allied forces report ready, announced her tactical officer. The Karathi assault squadrons are in position. The Vexani infiltration units have compromised 17 enemy ships. The Geltar communication disruptors are jamming their command frequencies. Cross nodded. This was humanity's greatest strength, not just their technology, but their ability to unite diverse species in common cause. The Zaphirians ruled through fear and isolation. Humans built coalitions through shared purpose. Signal to Admiral Vexhai, Cross ordered. Offer him one final chance to surrender. The communication screen filled with the image of the Zaphirian commander. His 4 arms moved in the gesture Dr. Park had identified as supreme contempt. You dare offer surrender terms to the Zaphirian Empire? Vexhai's voice carried centuries of arrogance. You are primitives who stumbled upon stolen technology. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. Cross remained calm. You attacked our world without warning or provocation. You killed 50 million innocent people. Today you answer for those crimes. Your species was taught its proper place in the galactic order. If you had remained on your primitive world, none of this would have been necessary. You're right, Cross replied. If you hadn't attacked Earth, we would have remained on our world, building our little colonies and exploring space peacefully, but you chose to make us your enemies. Now you get to learn what that means. The battle began with the sudden appearance of 1,000 human fighters that materialized inside the Zaphirian formation. The small craft, little more than engines strapped to reality displacement warheads, struck before the enemy could react. 50 Zaphirian ships simply ceased to exist in the first 10 seconds. Impossible, Vexhai shouted. How did they get past? Our shields. Admiral, the fighters appear to be using the same space-time manipulation technology as their capital ships. They're not penetrating our shields, they're bypassing them entirely. But the fighters were just the beginning. As the Zaphirian fleet tried to regroup, human capital ships began their own attack. These vessels carried weapons that violated every principle of conventional warfare. Gravity bombs that created temporary black holes, tearing enemy ships apart with impossible forces. Quantum disruptors that made Zaphirian weapons fire on their own allies. Temporal mines that slowed enemy ships to a crawl, while human vessels moved at normal speed. What manner of creatures are these humans? Vexhai demanded as another squadron of his ships vanished. These weapons should not be possible. His science officer, studying the impossible sensor readings, could only shake his head. Admiral, I believe they are using our own technology as a foundation and then improving it in ways our minds cannot comprehend. The truth was both simpler and more terrifying than the Zaphirians could imagine. Humanity had indeed started with alien technology, but their approach to warfare was fundamentally different. Where Zaphirians sought perfection through gradual refinement, humans embraced controlled chaos and rapid innovation. Launch the swarm, Cross ordered. The space around the human fleet suddenly filled with millions of tiny objects, each no larger than a golf ball. The Zaphirians dismissed them as debris until the objects began moving with purpose. Each micro-drone, carried a single-use quantum processor programmed with one task: find a weak point in enemy shields and deliver a small antimatter charge. Individually, they were harmless. Collectively, they were like a plague of technological locusts. "Admiral, we're being eaten alive," reported the Zaphirian tactical officer. "The microweapons are too small for our point defense systems to target effectively." Vexhai watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by weapons he couldn't even see clearly. Fall back to defensive formation. Prepare the Imperial weapons. But the retreat never came. Human ships, moving faster than anything the Zaphirians had ever encountered, surrounded the Imperial fleet before it could regroup. Worse, the Allied forces, ships built by species the Empire had enslaved, struck from unexpected angles, with intimate knowledge of Zaphirian vulnerabilities. "The auxiliary power couplings on the Imperial dreadnoughts are located here," transmitted a Karathi captain, highlighting weak points on dozens of enemy ships. "Strike there and their main weapons will overload. Zaphirian shield generators have a harmonic frequency that can be exploited," added a Vexani commander. "We should know. We were forced to build them." The battle turned into a massacre. But it wasn't just the tactical superiority that broke the Zaphirian fleet. It was the psychological impact of facing an enemy that fought with absolute, terrifying commitment. Human pilots rammed their ships into Zaphirian vessels when their weapons ran dry, damaged human ships instead of retreating, overloaded their reactors and used themselves as guided missiles. Soldiers boarded enemy vessels not to capture them, but to ensure their destruction even at the cost of their own lives. "They fight like demons," whispered a Zaphirian gunner as human boarders swept through his ship. "They show no fear of death." It was true. The attack on Earth had awakened something primal in human nature, the absolute refusal to submit to extinction. Every human in the fleet carried the memory of Shanghai's burning skyline, of children who would never grow up, of a world forced to unite in the face of unprovoked genocide. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Vexhai found himself commanding less than 200 ships out of his original 2,000. The humans had lost perhaps 50 vessels, while their allies had suffered moderate casualties. It was the most one-sided defeat in Zaphirian military history. "Admiral," his communications officer called out desperately, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies." Cross's voice filled the comm channels, speaking in perfect Zaphirian. "This is Admiral Rebecca Cross of the Human Defense Fleet. Admiral Vexhai, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and your surviving crew will be treated according to galactic conventions. Continue fighting, and we will demonstrate weapons that will make everything you've seen so far look primitive." Vexhai's pride warred with his survival instincts. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders. Some looked hopeful at the prospect of surrender. Others seemed ready to fight to the death. "What weapons?" he transmitted back. "We have seen your reality displacement technology. What more could you possibly possess?" Cross's reply chilled him to his core. "Would you like a demonstration? We've developed a weapon that can remotely detonate stars. Your home system's sun is currently in our targeting computers." The lie was perfect because it was almost true. Human scientists had indeed been working on stellar engineering technology based on Zaphirian data. They couldn't detonate stars yet, but they were close enough that the threat was believable. "You're bluffing," Vexhai said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Dr. Mitchell," Cross called out loud enough for the transmission to pick up, "please show Admiral Vexhai the stellar manipulation test results from last month." The tactical display suddenly showed footage of a human test ship approaching a small red dwarf star. As the Zaphirians watched in growing horror, the star's output doubled, then tripled, then became so bright that the recording equipment had to filter the image to prevent sensor damage. "That was a controlled enhancement," Cross explained calmly. "We can also reverse the process, collapse a star into a black hole. Imagine what that would do to a populated system." Vexhai stared at the footage, his mind struggling to process what he had seen. The humans had weaponized stellar engineering, something even the Zaphirian Empire had never attempted. "This is madness," he whispered. "You would destroy entire solar systems?" "You destroyed our cities without warning," Cross replied. You killed 50 million of our people in a single day. Yes, Admiral, we would absolutely destroy your worlds to prevent you from doing it again. The only question is whether you want to test our resolve. The Zaphirian bridge fell silent except for the sound of damage control systems working frantically to keep their ship operational. Around them, the surviving fleet waited for orders that could determine the fate of their entire civilization. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, our long-range sensors confirm human fleets are moving towards 17 major Zaphirian systems. If they possess stellar manipulation technology. Vexhai closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 2,000 years of imperial history pressing down on him. The Zaphirian Empire had ruled the galaxy through superior technology and strategic brilliance. But they had never encountered an enemy willing to literally move stars to achieve victory. Signal to all ships, he said finally. Stand down weapons. Prepare for surrender. The transmission went out across the battlefield, and one by one, Zaphirian ships powered down their weapons and lowered their shields. It was the first time in Imperial history that a Zaphirian fleet had surrendered to an enemy force. But Cross wasn't finished. Admiral Vexhai, you have one more choice to make. You can return to your empire and tell them that humanity is coming for every world they control. Or you can stay and help us build something better. Help you? Vexhai's voice carried confusion and disbelief. We're not just conquering your empire, Admiral. We're replacing it with something that doesn't enslave entire species. Something that governs through cooperation rather than fear. You can be part of that future, or you can watch it happen from a prison cell. The offer was genuine, and Vexhai knew it. He had studied human tactics for months, and their pattern was consistent. They offered genuine partnership to former enemies who proved willing to embrace their vision of galactic civilization. And if I refuse, then you'll be treated well, as a prisoner of war. But Admiral, think about what you've seen today. We've turned your own technology against you. We've united every species you enslaved. We've demonstrated weapons that can destroy solar systems. Your empire is finished whether you help us or not. The only question is whether you want to help build what comes next. Vexhai looked around his bridge at the crew who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. Many of them were already nodding, recognizing the inevitable. What would you have me do? He asked. Help us contact the Zaphirian High Command, Cross replied. Help us offer them the same choice we're offering you. Surrender and join the new galactic order, or face the consequences of continued resistance. As the human fleet formed an escort around the surrendering Zaphirian ships, Cross allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. However, today had proven something important to both allies and enemies. Humanity was no longer fighting just for survival. They were fighting to reshape the entire galaxy. The surrender of the Zaphirian Empire came not with a single dramatic moment, but through a cascade of capitulations that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Admiral Vexhai's transmission to the High Command had been simple and devastating. The humans possess weapons that can destroy stars. Resistance is futile. Fleet Admiral Cross stood in the command center of Luna Station, humanity's new military headquarters built in orbit around Earth's moon. Through the vast windows, she could see the blue marble of Earth, scarred but healing from the attacks that had started this war. The planet now served as the unofficial capital of what beings across the galaxy were calling the Human Alliance. Final report, Admiral, her aide announced. The last Zaphirian holdout system has surrendered. The war is officially over. Cross nodded, feeling empty rather than victorious. The war had lasted 3 years from the first human counterattack to this moment. In that time, humanity had not just defeated the Zaphirian Empire, they had completely restructured galactic civilization. What's the total count? She asked. 417 star systems now under Alliance control. 233 different species have joined as full members. Former Zaphirian technology has been distributed to all member worlds along with human innovations in AI, quantum computing, and stellar engineering. The numbers told the story of the most successful military campaign in galactic history. But Cross knew the real story was more complicated, And the other matter? Her aide's expression grew troubled. President Martinez is waiting for you in Conference Room Alpha. The tribunal has reached its decision regarding the Zaphirian leadership. Cross made her way through the station's corridors, noting how different everything looked now. The halls were filled with beings from dozens of species, all wearing the insignia of the human alliance. Former enemies worked alongside former slaves, united by a common vision of galactic civilization. But underneath the cooperation, Cross sensed something that worried her. Fear. Not fear of the Zaphirians, but fear of humanity itself. President Elena Martinez looked up as Cross entered the conference room. The leader of Earth's unified government appeared tired, aged by the weight of decisions that affected trillions of beings across the galaxy. Admiral, Martinez said, please sit. We need to discuss the tribunal's verdict. Cross took her seat across from the president. Between them sat a holographic display showing the faces of 17 Zaphirian leaders, including former Emperor Keth and Admiral Vexhai. They've been found guilty of crimes against sentience, Martinez continued. Genocide, enslavement, forced labor, cultural destruction. The evidence is overwhelming. What's the sentence? Martinez hesitated. The tribunal is recommending execution for the top 12 leaders, life imprisonment for the others. Cross studied the faces in the hologram. These beings had ordered the deaths of billions across centuries of conquest. By any measure of justice, they deserved whatever punishment the galaxy chose to inflict. So why did she feel uncomfortable? There's something else, Martinez said. The Karathi delegation has requested that the executions be carried out using stellar manipulation technology. They want to demonstrate to the galaxy what happens to those who commit genocide. Cross felt her stomach tighten. They want us to destroy a star to execute 17 prisoners? Not just any star. They want us to collapse the Zaphirian home system's sun into a black hole, with the entire leadership aboard a ship in close orbit. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Such an execution would indeed send a message to the galaxy. But what kind of message? Admiral, Martinez said quietly. There's something else you need to know. Our intelligence services have been monitoring communications across Alliance space. Many of our member species are concerned about humanity's capabilities. Concerned? How? They're grateful for liberation, but they're also terrified of what we've become. We've demonstrated weapons that can destroy solar systems. We've shown a level of tactical ruthlessness that shocks even former Zaphirian subjects. Some of them are wondering if they've simply traded one set of masters for another. Cross walked to the window and looked out at Earth. The planet that had been devastated by alien attack was now the center of a galactic empire larger than anything the Zaphirians had ever controlled. How had that happened so quickly? What do you think we should do about the executions? She asked. I think, Martinez said carefully, that we need to decide what kind of galactic power we want to be. Do we rule through fear, like the Zaphirians did? Or do we find another way? Before Cross could answer, an aide entered the room. Madam President, Admiral, you need to see this. We're receiving a transmission from Captain Chen aboard the New Horizon. The holographic display changed to show Captain Sarah Chen, now gray-haired, and weathered by years in deep space. Behind her, Cross could see the bridge of humanity's first colony ship, still exploring the far reaches of Zaphirian space. Earth Command, Chen said. I'm transmitting from the former Zaphirian capital world. We've found something in the Imperial archives that changes everything. What kind of something? Martinez asked. Evidence of what the Zaphirians were before. They became conquerors. Admiral, Madam President, they weren't always an empire. 3,000 years ago, they were victims. Cross leaned forward. Victims of what? Another species called the Dracani. According to these records, the Dracani attacked the Zaphirian homeworld without provocation, killing billions. The survivors spent centuries building their military might, eventually destroying the Dracani civilization completely. But they didn't stop there. The implications hit Cross like a physical blow. They became the very thing that destroyed them. Exactly, Chen confirmed. Their entire imperial philosophy was based on ensuring they would never again be vulnerable to surprise attack. They conquered other species not out of pure evil, but out of trauma-driven paranoia. They convinced themselves they were bringing order to a chaotic galaxy. Martinez sat back in her chair, her face pale. Just like we're doing now. There's more, Chen continued. I've found similar patterns in the records of a dozen other galactic empires throughout history. The Corvalli hegemony, the Talnash Republic, the Crystalline Dominion. All of them started as victims who became victimizers. Cross felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Humanity had suffered an unprovoked attack, built overwhelming military power in response, and now controlled more territory than any single species in galactic history. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Captain, she said, what's your recommendation? Chen's expression was grave. I think we need to very carefully consider what kind of precedent we want to set, because everything we do now will be remembered for thousands of years. After the transmission ended, Cross and Martinez sat in silence, staring at the holographic display that still showed the faces of condemned Zaphirian leaders. We have to make a choice, Martinez said finally. Execute them as examples to the galaxy, or find another way to deal with war criminals. What about the member species? They expect justice. Justice, yes. But what kind of justice? The Karathi want revenge, understandable considering what they suffered. But if we destroy an entire solar system to execute 17 beings, what does that say about us? Cross thought about the human pilots who had sacrificed themselves in battle, the scientists who had worked around the clock to develop new weapons, the billions of people on Earth who had united in the face of extinction. All of that sacrifice had been in service of survival and justice. But when did justice become vengeance? When did necessary strength become tyrannical power? There's another option, Cross said slowly. We could exile them. Exile? Strip them of their technology, give them a single ship, and send them to the edge of known space. Let them start over as refugees like so many of the species they displaced. They keep their lives, but they lose everything else. Martinez considered this. The member species won't like it. They want blood. Then we give them something better. We give them a demonstration that we're different from the Zaphirians, that we can show mercy even to our worst enemies. And if they see mercy as weakness? Cross looked out at Earth again, thinking of the children who had died in Shanghai, the families torn apart by alien weapons, the civilization that had been forced to become something it never wanted to be. Then we prove them wrong. We show them that showing mercy requires more strength than showing cruelty. The debate continued for hours, involving representatives from dozens of species and every major faction within the Alliance. In the end, the decision came down to a simple vote by the Alliance Council. Exile won by a margin of 3 votes. 6 months later, Cross stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as a single outdated ship departed from Earth's orbital space. Aboard were the 17 surviving Zaphirian leaders bound for the edge of known space with enough supplies to start a new life, but no technology beyond basic survival equipment. Do you think we made the right choice? Asked Dr. Park, who had become humanity's chief diplomatic officer. I don't know, Cross admitted, but I know we made the choice we can live with. The Karathi delegation is still angry. Some of the other species think we're too soft. Let them think that. Better to be feared for our mercy than our cruelty. But even as she said the words, Cross wondered if she was being naive. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with species that might interpret mercy as weakness. Would humanity's choice to show restraint come back to haunt them? Admiral, Park said quietly, there's something else. Intelligence reports suggest that several species on the outer rim are forming defensive alliances. They're concerned about human expansion. Cross nodded. She had been expecting this. No species in galactic history had ever acquired as much power as quickly as humanity had. Fear was a natural response. What kind of alliances? Military pacts, mostly. They're not planning to attack us, but they're preparing to defend themselves. If we decide to keep expanding, are we planning to keep expanding? Park shrugged. That's above my pay grade, Admiral. But I know the Colonial Development Ministry has identified 36 systems suitable for human settlement. Cross thought about the future spreading out before them. Humanity now possessed technology that could reshape solar systems, weapons that could destroy entire fleets, and the industrial capacity to build whatever they needed. They were the dominant power in the galaxy, respected by their allies and feared by potential enemies. But they were also alone in a way that no previous galactic empire had ever been. They had achieved their position not through gradual expansion or natural development, but through a desperate response to attempted genocide. They were feared not just for their power, but for the ruthless efficiency with which they had used it. Dr. Park, Cross said, I want you to prepare a proposal for the Alliance Council. New protocols for contact with non-alliance species. Rules of engagement that prioritize diplomacy over force. Standards for determining when military intervention is justified. You want to limit our own power? I want to use it responsibly. The Zaphirians spent 2,000 years convincing themselves that their conquests were necessary for galactic stability. I don't want humanity to make the same mistake. As the months passed, the human alliance faced new challenges that had nothing to do with military conquest. Former Zaphirian subjects struggled to adapt to freedom after centuries of oppression. Some species demanded immediate access to humanity's most advanced technology. Others wanted complete independence from any galactic government. Managing an empire, Cross discovered, was much more difficult than conquering one. The irony, she confided to Martinez during one of their regular meetings, is that we've become exactly what we set out to destroy. We're the dominant power that smaller species fear and resent. The difference, Martinez replied, is that we're trying to be better than our predecessors. The question is whether that's enough. The answer came unexpectedly in the form of a transmission from the edge of known space. The exiled Zaphirian leaders, after 2 years of struggling to survive on a barren world, had sent a message to Earth. We understand now, former Emperor Keth said in the transmission, what we became and why. We understand the fear that drives a species to seek absolute security through absolute power. And we understand that you face the same choice we faced 3,000 years ago. The transmission continued. You have shown us mercy when we showed you none. You have chosen restraint when you could have chosen revenge. Perhaps there is hope that the cycle can be broken, that a species can possess ultimate power without being corrupted by it. Cross watched the transmission alone in her quarters, feeling the weight of galactic history pressing down on her shoulders. Outside her window, Earth turned slowly in the void, a blue jewel surrounded by the ships and stations of humanity's new empire. The 10 missiles fired at Earth 7 years ago had indeed taught humanity their place in the galaxy. But perhaps, Cross thought, they had also given humanity the wisdom to use that place responsibly. The future would tell.